Hello everyone, this is Midlife Music Teacher and I'm Mrs. G. And in this video, I'm going to answer the question, what happened with the Autoharps? So let's take it from the top. Last year, I had found an Autoharp in my closet at school, and I took it home over the summer and I did some research on it. I bought finger picks and a special tool to tune the Autoharp, and I taught myself how to play the Autoharp. I would love to be able to play this and to have my students mess around with it and play it. So I'm going to keep up my efforts of tuning. I'm going to watch a few videos on how to play it, and hopefully by the end of the summer, I will be able to play a song or two on this instrument. With the expectation that I was going to use it and play it with my students, and ultimately let my students play the Autoharps. Then at the beginning of the school year, someone who I had worked with donated a second Autoharp to our school. A teacher that retired last school year was moving, and when she cleaned out her house, she found this. And so she gave it to someone, who gave it to someone, who gave it to me for use in my classroom. And I just think that this is kind of amazing, but it is an Autoharp. So she donated this Oscar Schmidt Autoharp. And so I am going to tune it up this weekend. It's a long weekend, so I brought it home to tune it up. And this is so exciting because now my students will have two Autoharps to play with. It can be like a station at one of our free choice music classes. And so this is really great. I will have to send that teacher a thank you for donating this. This is going to be super fun. And I just thought that that was really neat that now we went from no Autoharps to now we had two. And so I took that one, I tuned it up, and I figured out how I was going to incorporate the Autoharps into my teaching. The first thing that I did with the Autoharps was I used one of them to accompany my K1 and 2 students in their hello song. And typically I accompany them with my ukulele, but I thought this would be a great introduction to the Autoharp if I used it for this purpose. This gave the students an opportunity to see an instrument they've never seen before, and we discussed it. We talked about how the Autoharp is in the same family as the ukulele. What are some of the similarities and differences between the Autoharp and the ukulele? I showed them how it was made, how there's strings, how you push the buttons to form and play the chords. They heard the sound. We talked about the sound it made. Unfortunately, one of the things that I learned is there's a 99.9% chance that if you teach in New England, your school building is not climate controlled, and therefore it would send the Autoharps out of tune. And while yes, I tuned my ukulele frequently, there's only 4 strings to tune in that case. Whereas in the Autoharp, there's 30 plus strings to tune. So the instrument would start to go out of tune a bit, and while it didn't bother the children so much, it started to bother me, and I just didn't have 20 minutes a day to tune the whole instrument every single day. So I would tune it a few times throughout the course of a week or two, and then that was it. I gave up using the Autoharp as the accompanying instrument. So last month, I moved forward with putting the Autoharps out for free choice music class. I had to think ahead of time how the students would interact with the instruments before giving them the opportunity to play them. So the first thing I did was I decided that I would let them use guitar picks on the Autoharps to strum the instruments. And so I put 4 guitar picks out, and one of my rules at that center was there's 4 picks on the table at the beginning. When the timer goes off, there must be 4 picks on the table when the center is over. If there's not 4 picks on the table, then nobody else can play at the center anymore. And so that just prevented the children from being careless with the picks, losing them, or putting them in their pocket and taking them. Then I showed them and demonstrated how they were to use the pick on the strings. It's a light strum, and I strummed the strings very lightly. Like, you have to hold on to the pick, don't drop it. Then I said one person could strum the strings and someone else could push the buttons. Now these buttons on the Autoharp, when you push them, it will play chords. And so I demonstrated this. One person can push the button, someone else can strum the strings, and then you can switch and take turns. I reminded them that these buttons are not piano keys, that the strings are not percussion. This is not a percussion instrument. We are not hitting it. When you play, it is gentle. You press the button down. You don't slam it. You don't push more than one button at a time. It's not a keyboard. It's a string instrument. And so those were kind of the rules I put out for playing the instrument and sharing and taking turns. For second, third, and fourth grade, I also put out song sheets that had songs with chords written on them. And so if they wanted to, they could try to strum along and play a song to sing along to if they wanted to. In setting these rules, I also said that the Autoharps need to stay on the table. They are not to be picked up in any way, shape, or form. They stay on the table and they stay in the positions that they're in on the table. And I said, if anybody is not following the rules, then the center gets shut down. So the first day that I put the Autoharps out, we did have a student drop the pick into the hole. And an Autoharp is not a guitar. You can't just pick it up and shake the pick out. In fact, I picked it up and shook it, and I thought I heard the pick in there, but then I didn't hear it anymore. So I don't know if it got stuck on something inside the instrument, but that pick is gone forever, unless I restring the Autoharp, which I don't intend to do. However, the second day I put the Autoharps out, I reminded them to hold on to the picks and not let the pick fall into the hole. Sometimes the picks would fall in through the strings and land on the soundboard, and then you just tip the Autoharp and it will slide out. But to watch students try to stick their fingers in between the strings to try to get the pick out from underneath the strings, it kind of baffled me. I said, how do you think this is going to happen? The strings are so close together, you cannot stick your finger in between them. One of the other things that happened on the second day I put the Autoharps out is that one student was being way too rough and broke a string on one of the Autoharps. And so I had to remove that Autoharp from service until I could take the string off. I should have looked into how much money a set of strings for Autoharp costs before I let kids play on them. I don't have $120, and I'm not going to spend the hours and hours it will take to restring the whole entire Autoharp. So I took that string off. I put it back into the center minus a string. Out the course of letting all the classes use them for free choice, there were several times where I had to shut that center down for one reason or another. They were playing too rough. They lost a pick down into the hole. Luckily, no more strings broke. In doing this, I did find that some students were very creative. They were strumming and singing songs and making up their own songs. But overall, it made me realize that I cannot let the students play the Autoharps unsupervised moving forward. So how do I plan on using the Autoharps in the future? Well, I think next year I'm going to pick a few songs to do with each grade level, and these songs I will teach the students how to accompany with the Autoharp. I'll put the Autoharps next to me in front of the classroom, and I'll have the students come up and take turns playing the chord patterns on the instruments. I really want the students to be able to play on them, but I really feel like it needs to be done in a more supervised and structured way. Also, I do think that playing the Autoharps was pretty typical for students to do. Prior to 1995, some of the textbooks I still have that are copyright from 1995 have a picture of an Autoharp in the book as a reference. And so why would they put a picture of an Autoharp with all the buttons and the chords in this book as a resource if it wasn't something that was commonly used by students prior to 1995 anyway? I think it would just be fun to give students the opportunity to accompany each other on something other than just percussion. So those are my thoughts about the Autoharp, what I did with it this year, what I am looking forward to doing with it next year. I'll keep you up to date on how it goes. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to check out some of my other videos about the Autoharp. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.